Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. So sit back, relax, get something to eat, get some coffee, whatever the case. I'm not going to get in a rush on this video. It might be a little bit long, but I'm going to talk about
one cartridge to rule them all, the Lord of the Cartridges.
Stay tuned. If you've watched my channel for very long, especially from the beginning, you might be thinking, haven't you already done this? Because I kind of have, but let me explain. I've made a lot of claims on this channel. I find it boring to give you answers like it depends, it depends, it depends, so why not throw out some opinion and just make some claims, you know, just throw it out there. So I have made several claims and I'm gonna quickly run through a few of them. So at the beginning of my channel, I set out to figure out what I felt like was the best all-around cartridge, and I wanted it to be for hunting and competition. So it could be good, you know, from like coyotes to elk, and basically also be good at 1,000-yard target shooting. And my number one scale rating was efficiency. I was looking for an efficient cartridge that I could get this done with. And so it was a 5-part series, some of the very first videos on my channel. And the winner was the 7mm 08. I felt like it was just the all-around best when it comes to what I laid out as the parameters. And I stand by that. Well, still focusing on efficiency, I then went on to say, well, what if you could have 2 rifles to do the same thing, but maybe, you know, if you have 2, it's not going to be quite so expansive and you can focus in a little bit more. And I picked the 6mm Creedmoor and the 280 Ackley Improved as the 2 I would pick objectively, as objective as I could possibly make it. And I threw out there like a 243 and a 30-06 will work just as fine. But that was my picks, the 6mm Remington, the 280. Then I made a follow-up video and I said, well, what if there was 3? Like, what if you could, once again, focusing on efficiency, hunting and competition, have 3 to cover everything. I picked the 6mm Creedmoor, the 7mm 08, and the 300 Winchester Short Magnum. Since then, I made a video called What is the Perfect Rifle Cartridge? And I made a lot of claims in that video. I said the greatest cartridge of all time, as in literal greatness, accomplishments, is the 30-06. I said the best hunting cartridge of all time is the 7mm Remington Magnum. Of course, I made it clear that my personal favorite is the 6.5 284. So then, to answer the question once and for all, in that video, I said, what is the perfect rifle cartridge? And I went with the 280 Ackley Improved. Other claims I've made on this channel, I said if there's one cartridge that is equally as good in competition and hunting, and it just seems to be the ideal crossover cartridge, it's the 284 Winchester. It's had a lot of success in competition, but not so much in the hunting world because of poor marketing and some bad decisions on Winchester's part. But if you just wanted to pick one that is in that fine line between both worlds, it's the 284. And I basically at that point thought I was done with my perfect rifle cartridge series. I thought I was just going to move on to other series. But then I went back to it and I said, you know, the best short to medium range cartridge for like whitetail deer hunting in Missouri, and I named it the 308. Then I said, what's the best designed cartridge in the 7mm category? The best designed cartridge. And I said the 7mm PRC. And then I had a 5-part series which I said, what is the best designed cartridge in 30 caliber? And I went with the 300 WSM. Now I stand by all those claims, but some of those videos came out before some newer cartridges were even in existence, namely the 6.8 Western and the 7mm PRC. So as my absolute final video in this perfect rifle cartridge series, I'm going to name the once and for all best cartridge for hunting. Now, the reason I'm changing it up a little bit is I'm not going to do the same thing I did before. It has to be a little bit different. But as I've had this YouTube channel and as I've thought about all these things, I've realized that hunting and competition shooting are really two different things. And if you want to know what the best competition cartridge is as far as long-range target shooting, just go watch the F-Class. Just go watch bench rest. Watch PRS. It's the cartridges that they're using. They're using them because they're the best. It's the cartridges that win the matches. It's the cartridges that have the records. So it's not hard to figure out what's the best. Right now, the 284 and its derivatives, the 6mm bench rest and its derivatives, maybe even the 300 WSM. I think has the world record currently for tightest group at 1,000 yards. So those competitions in and of themselves are tests, and really, it's not hard to figure out what's the best. It's what people are using and what they're breaking records with. Now, in the hunting world, it's more cryptic. It's really so subjective. It's just everyone has their favorite cartridge, and everyone feels the need to defend their favorite cartridge and attack other people's cartridges. Not everybody, but a lot of that goes on. You've got team old school and team new school. And some people on team old school think all the new cartridges should not have even been invented and there's no point. And they're upset that they're even in existence. And then team new school thinks if the cartridge came out before 2007, then we should just never use them again and only have newer cartridges. Well, I'm team nobody. I'm not team old school. I'm not team new school. I like all cartridges. All right, so point of this is it's about hunting, and it's more fun to figure out what the best hunting cartridge is because it's not as well established, and of course it depends, and of course it's personal opinion. But that's not fun. I'm going to give you a actual winner. And by the way, this is my opinion, so don't get mad. It's just me having fun talking about rifle cartridges. All right, so let me lay out the parameters. We're talking about hunting, but we're not talking about dangerous game. If you're going to hunt dangerous game, in my opinion, you need a dedicated rifle and cartridge for that. We're not talking about small game. You need a dedicated cartridge for that, in my opinion. We're talking about all those game species in the middle. From your furbearers, your bobcat, your coyotes, your varmints, up to your really large game species like moose, eland, things like that. So this cartridge, it's got to be able to do it all. It might be overbore, it might be a little much for the varmints, but yet it's not ridiculously too much. It might be a little bit not enough for an eland or something in Africa, but it's definitely doable. But one thing I want to throw out here is a very important factor here is distance, hunting distance. Now, everybody has their opinion on how far is ethical hunting. In my opinion, around the 500-yard mark is within reason. Maybe a little further, maybe not that far, but I would say between 400 and 500 yards is where I'm going to limit this to. So the cartridge needs to be a viable hunting cartridge, even out to 400 or 500 yards. Of course, that's with good shot placement, picking the right bullet with the right bullet construction, and knowing your ballistics, knowing that you have the correct velocity and energy for that bullet to expand and penetrate. All right, so where to begin? Let's make some big swaths, some big cuts right off the beginning. Just quickly cut out a bunch. 20 caliber and 17 caliber are gone. They're just too little. And anything over 33 caliber is just gone. So we're going to focus on 22 caliber to 33 caliber. And anything smaller or bigger than those calibers, I'm cutting them out now. Now you can shoot a squirrel with a 45-70, and you can shoot an eland or a moose with a 22 Hornet. I don't recommend that, and I think it's a bad idea. So we're just going to cut out those big cartridges. So what are we focusing on? Let me tell you that, just like I said, we're not focusing on competition, only hunting. That brings up a totally different way of looking at this. So instead of efficiency being the number one weight on the scale, it's a weight on the scale, but it's not number one. The number one, and it's not even close, is versatility. And I'll talk a whole lot more about that in a second. Availability, efficiency, barrel life, recoil, all that is a weight on the scale. But when it comes to hunting, it's a much lower weight. It has a much less impact, and it's not a huge factor. But it can be a factor in kicking a cartridge out or keeping a cartridge in. But by far and away, when it comes to hunting, the factor we have to focus on that has the biggest impact on the scale is versatility. But now there's two aspects to versatility. The first aspect is the spread of weighted bullets. How big, how versatile is the lightest to the heaviest bullet you can shoot in that cartridge? Okay, that's one way of looking at versatility. The other way of looking at versatility is this cartridge good for up close, medium, and long range hunting distances, which once again, I'm going to say are 400 to 500 yards. It has to be versatile. It can't be a 30-30. A 30-30 or a 300 blackout is not going to be a good hunting cartridge at 400 to 500 yards. So it's not as versatile in that regard as it can be. So those are the two aspects of versatility. All right, I'm going to put some stuff up on the screen here. You can see this. From 22 caliber to 33 caliber, I have what I believe, I could be wrong, is the lightest bullet and the heaviest bullet in that caliber. And then I have to the right of that the spread. So 22 caliber is 35 to 90 grains with this 55 weight spread. And you can see as we go down the list, it jumps up to 60 to 75 to 85, 95, 107, 150, 110, 140. Okay? Now this is in what I have found to be the lightest and heaviest bullets. Generally speaking, you will notice as you go up in caliber, you tend to get a bigger spread, okay? And then right below that I have twist rates to shoot those heaviest bullets. So the 90 grain in the 22 caliber, the 160 grain in the 27 caliber, the 250 grain in the 30 caliber. To shoot the heaviest bullets per caliber, right below that is the kind of twist rate that you're going to have. So if you want the most versatility, then you're going to need those twist rates, okay? Now, quickly you will notice the spread is the smallest in those lighter calibers, 22, 24, 25. So I think we can immediately cut out the 22 caliber and the 24 caliber because they're just not versatile enough. Okay? A 90 grain bullet in say a 22 250 is definitely okay for a lot of things, but it's not okay, in my opinion, for an elk at distance. Can it be done? Yes. Has it been done? I'm sure. Same with a 24 caliber. It's really only getting up to 115, maybe slightly more grains, and it's just not enough, in my opinion. So those two calibers are gone, okay? Now, I'm a big fan of the 24 caliber, but if you can only have one, it's just too light, and it's not versatile enough. Also, look down at the 22 and 24 calibers. You got to have a 1 in 7 twist to shoot the heaviest bullets. And if you notice as you go down, 25 caliber through 30 caliber is basically 1 in 8 to shoot the heaviest bullets. And then you're going to just keep getting bigger. You get to 33 caliber, really 1 in 10 is fine. So that is interesting. Those lighter calibers, those smaller calibers, they really need a fast twist rate to get a heavy per caliber bullet. And the bigger caliber you get, you don't quite need as fast of a bullet. Now let me diverge for 1 second and just throw something out there. You might hear things like the 25 caliber is just not as versatile as the 30 caliber. Well, that's true, but it's only true because of manufacturers. It all comes down to the rifle manufacturers and what twist rate they put. It's based on the ammo manufacturers. It's based on the bullet manufacturers. And all those things are based on customer demand. And so, yeah, you don't see certain bullets in certain calibers, certain weight bullets in certain calibers, and you don't see, you know, a 140 grain bullet in a 25 caliber or a 30 grain bullet in a 25 caliber. Why? Because the market has not demanded it over time, and the manufacturers of the rifles, bullets, and ammo aren't making them. So in that regard, yes, it is less versatile than a 30 caliber because people demand really light bullets and really heavy bullets. And so because of customer demand, the manufacturers have made more of an option, more of a variety. But it's not inherently because a certain caliber is more versatile than another caliber. That goes against physics. In reality, a manufacturer can make any bullet that they want to make, well, within reason, in any caliber, but customer demand requires them to make certain ones. So inherently 30 is not more versatile than 25, it's just because of the market. And same with ballistic coefficiency. So we're talking about twist rates. If you have those faster twist rates, you can shoot heavier per caliber, higher BC bullets, and they're that way, they had the high BC because of their design, their length, and their weight, right? But how many times have you heard someone say, I've probably said it, well, your 7mm bullet has a better BC than your 30 caliber bullet. No, it doesn't. That doesn't make any sense. But we typically shoot lower weighted bullets in a 30 caliber, you know, between like 130 and 200 or 180. But we typically like heavier bullets, let's say in a 6.5mm, around like that 140 grain. So because the market says we like heavier high BC bullets in certain calibers, and we like lower BC bullets, but they're faster maybe in bigger calibers, that's what the manufacturers make. So yeah, a lot of bullets in 6.5 and 7mm will be higher BC. It's got nothing to do with the inherent BC of a caliber. You can get a 250 grain AMAX bullet, and by George, it has a very high BC. And any caliber can have any BC you want, you just have to make the corresponding bullet. So just an FYI, just so you understand, it's not inherently in a caliber to be more versatile or have a better BC, it's just what manufacturers make. And by the way, the reason that a lot of 30 caliber bullets are lower in BC is because if you get a 250 grain bullet or a 210 grain bullet, it's got a lot of recoil. And that's the main thing, is the recoil. We'll get back to recoil here in a minute, but let's go back to versatility. So 2 calibers, because of manufacturers, that are not known to have good versatility are 25 caliber and 32 caliber. If you look at the 32 caliber, it almost seems pointless, which a 32 caliber is an 8mm. It almost seems pointless to have it because the 30 caliber is very versatile and the 33 caliber is very versatile. There's almost no point to have an 8mm simply because of manufacturers and customer demand. And so because of that, it's not as versatile. And same with the 25 caliber. You might as well go down to a 6mm or up to a 6.5mm. And that's what's happened over the years, and so it's just not that versatile. So we're going to cut those 2 calibers out. 25 calibers out, 32 calibers out. All right, so what we have left is the 26, 27, 28, and 30 calibers. You might wonder, why is there no 29 caliber? I don't know. I don't know. Now let's get back to recoil for a second. Some people think that, you know, they have no problem with recoil. The vast majority of people do. So I pulled up on the, I think it's a Sportsman's Warehouse. If I said that wrong, I'll put it on the screen, but they have a really cool recoil chart. And you can just go through there and look at the recoil charts. I think Chuck Hawks has one too. But the rating on this Sportsman's Guide chart, basically, if you go through there, there's a certain rating. And I'm considering anything that's like 48 on this rating or higher to be kicked out, okay? It's just too much. So, and by the way, almost everything in your .338 caliber is going to be bigger than that, or heavy, or more than that, if you're shooting the heavy bullets. So just so you know, .33 caliber is a very versatile. It's got bullets from 160 to 300. It's right there with the .30 caliber. It's very versatile, but man, does it pack a punch. And it's great for certain animals on up to your biggest animals. But man, that much recoil, it's just a little bit of an overkill when it comes to like furbearers and smaller deer, things like that. So because of recoil, I'm kicking out the .338 caliber. That might make some people mad, especially if you live out west or in Canada, and it seems like that's a very common caliber. But keep in mind, you're typically shooting an average game that are much bigger than a lot of the rest of the continent. So all .338 are gone. And I'm only going to kick out 3 cartridges in the .30 caliber. I'm leaving everything else in. The 300 Rum, the 300 Norma Magnum, and the .30 378 Weatherby are all out because they all are past that 48 rating on the Sportsman's Guide recoil chart. So those are out. All right, what else can we cut out? I'm going to say anything that goes in an AR-15 is just out. Let me explain why. The other aspect of versatility, besides the grain weight spread, is hunting distance, okay? And in order to have a good range at which you can still kill an animal ethically and have enough oomph, enough energy and velocity to do that, you're going to require a certain amount of powder. For instance, a 300 Blackout is just not going to do it, right? Any of those old straight wall cartridges or really old cartridges that originally were black powder and were converted to, you know, smokeless powder, all those cartridges are out. They just have, they're not made for longer range. And so, in my opinion, they're just out. But your 6.8 SPC, your 223, your 6mm arc, your 6.5 Grindle, 300 Blackout, all those cartridges are fantastic. Don't get me wrong, they're fantastic cartridges. And they could kill anything with the right bullet and the right shot placement as long as the distance is close. But you get out there at 400 to 500 yards, I don't want to shoot an SPC, a 6.8 SPC, or a 6mm arc at a elk at 500 yards. I just don't want to do it. Once again, can it be done? Yes. Has it been done? Yes. It's not ideal. It's not going to be the one cartridge to rule them all. It's just not. So what is left? What's still left? Well, there's about 40 cartridges that still meet all the criteria and all the parameters that I've set. And I'm going to put them on the screen now. Basically, it's the 6.5 Creedmoor up to the 300 Weatherby Magnum. Oh, and I forgot to explain those AR-15 cartridges. The reason they're not as versatile, like I explained the range, but the reason they're not as versatile at range is because they're such a short case, they don't hold enough powder. To be versatile, you also have to have a certain amount of case capacity, and they just don't have it to have that versatility of range. Especially if you get a real heavy, long, high BC bullet, it's going to take up more of that, you know, crucial, valuable case capacity, and you're going to have even less room for powder. So, because of that, in my opinion, the 6.5 Creedmoor and 308 case is at the very bottom of that and just barely meets the criteria where you can still get quite a bit of powder in there. So, once again, it's all about versatility. All right, now there's 40 cartridges there. I can't go through every single cartridge and tell you why I picked it or why I didn't pick it on this video. So I'm just gonna jump to my Sweet 16 and I'm gonna give you those. If you question a certain cartridge and you wonder why it did not make the next jump, leave a comment and I'll explain my reasoning in the comments. All right, here's my Sweet 16. 6.5 PRC, 6.5 284 Norma, 6.5 Weatherby RPM, 6.8 Western, 27 Nosler, 280 AI, 7mm WSM, 7mm Remington Magnum, 7mm PRC, 28 Nosler, 30-06 Springfield, 300 WSM, 300 Win Mag, 30 Nosler, 300 PRC, and 300 Weatherby Magnum. Those are my Sweet 16. And just an overall explanation as to why I picked them. These above, those Sweet 16, have a twist rate and a case capacity to be versatile enough to make my list. Not just the twist rate, but also the case capacity. And a lot of the ones that didn't make it, just simply there was a better version of what they were on the list already, or they were just a little too inefficient, like a 6.5 300 Weatherby. Not that efficiency is a huge thing, but the ones that on the extreme of inefficiency, I cut out. I'm going to show you on the screen a couple things about barrel life. Once again, barrel life is not a big thing here because, you know, if you get a cartridge with 400 or 500 shots of barrel life, even if you shoot 100 cartridges to break it in and to find some good loads, and then you kill 20, 30 animals with it, and then just shooting it a few times a year just to make sure it's still shooting good, I mean, you can get a lot of meat with that. And so for hunting purposes, barrel life is not extremely important. The thing about barrel life, it just comes down to how overbore is the cartridge. And typically speaking, the smaller the caliber and the more powder, the more overbore the cartridge is. And I can show you a list of overbore cartridges and kind of explain it, but it in itself is not a huge factor here. But the ones on the absolute extremes, I cut those out. And it's the law of diminishing returns. It comes a point where they've added 20 more grains of powder and you're barely getting any benefit to it. So in some extreme cases of being overbore, I've cut those cartridges out. Availability, I haven't talked about that yet. It is a factor. It's not a huge factor, in my opinion. Now, you might disagree. That might be the number one factor to you. Even if it's expensive, if you can find the cartridges, the ammo, or if you reload, I'm probably just not going to worry about the availability. But now some of those extreme cases, like the 6.5-06 A square, great cartridge, and it is a standardized cartridge. It was standardized by A square, but it's not common at all. If you hand load, it's not a big deal. But some of those extreme cases like that, I just went ahead and kicked out. And I kicked out some really good cartridges like the 25-06. Its bullet selection is just so small because of reasons we've talked about before. It's just not versatile enough. I kicked out cartridges like the 7mm Weatherby Magnum because it has a 1 in 10 twist. It's just not as versatile as other cartridges like the 28 Nosler that kind of do the same thing. So that's kind of an overall explanation of how I got to my Sweet 16. All right, now I'm gonna make everybody mad. There's no way around this. I'm gonna make some people mad. Just keep in mind, it's my opinion, right? When you get down to 16 cartridges that are this good, I mean this amazing, you gotta nitpick a little bit. And so, this is my list. There's some things about some of these cartridges that I don't personally like from a design standpoint, and so I kicked them out. They're great cartridges. Please don't get upset with me, but in my opinion, there's another cartridge on this list that basically does the same thing, has the same performance, yet doesn't have those nitpicky issues that I have. And if you're wondering about those, leave a comment and I'll tell you the ones that they were, but it should be obvious. That kicked out 4 more, so I'm down to my dirty dozen. 6.5 PRC, 6.5 284 Norma, 6.5 Weatherby RPM, 6.8 Western, 27 Nosler, 280 AI, 7 PRC, 28 Nosler, 30-06, 300 WSM, 30 Nosler, 300 PRC. Now, to those classic cartridge fans, and I'm a classic cartridge fan, you're probably upset at this point because all the old classic cartridges are gone, except for one, because that's just me. I love modern cartridge design, and if I have to give as objective as possible ranking, I'm going to go with the designs I think are better, and that typically leans toward modern. But notice the 30-06 is still in there. that should tell you how phenomenal that cartridge is, that it's still hanging in there. And if you picked the 30-06 as your one cartridge to rule them all, Lord of the Cartridges, I would say that's not a bad pick, even though it came out in 1906. So props to the 30-06. All right, it's down to this point where every cartridge I kick out is a phenomenal cartridge that could win the whole thing, and if you picked it, I wouldn't be upset at all. I'm kicking out the 280 Ackley Improved. Yes, the cartridge I said was the perfect rifle cartridge, which, by the way, I still think it's one of the best, okay? It's just, if it's just about hunting and not about anything else, I think the 28 Nosler and the 7 PRC just edge it out. And it's razor thin. And then I took out the 30 Nosler. I've just got so many 30 calibers still in there, and I just had to pick one, so I kicked it out. So the top 10 now is what you see on the screen. That's my top 10. All right, now this top 10 is an amazing top 10. Notice the 30-06 is still there. That's how great of a cartridge it is. All right, I'm gonna cut out the 300 PRC. If it was only big game, it's gonna be right there in the final few. But if it's the one cartridge for all, it's just too much. A magnum length action, probably a 26-inch barrel. Doesn't have to be, but probably a 26-inch barrel. It's just too much. You know, it's not technically over the threshold that I gave for recoil, but it's just too much to be well-rounded, right? So I'm kicking it out. Now this should show you how impartial I'm trying to be. I'm kicking out the 6.5 284. I like it much better than the 6.5 PRC. Objectively, they're almost the same thing, but one technically just goes a little faster. And for those heaviest game, the biggest game, I should say, you want as much velocity as possible without, you know, compromising on some of the other things I mentioned. So I'm going to kick out the 6.5 284. Now I'm just going to go ahead and drop down to my top 5. And by process of elimination, you'll figure out the ones I just kicked out. But my top 5 is 6.5 PRC, 6.8 Western, 7 PRC, 28 Nosler, and the 300 WSM. That's my top 5. So I kicked out the 27 Nosler, the 6.5 Weatherby RPM, and the 30-06. Just an FYI, I like the 30-06 better than all of these that I've kept in there. I actually like the 27 Nosler more than the 28 Nosler. And I'm a big fan of that Weatherby RPM, but just trying to be as objective as possible. That's my top 5. How do you break it down anymore? Any 5 of these could definitely win. You know, you say, which one has the best barrel life? I'm not sure, honestly. Probably the 300 WSM, but I'm not sure. Which one has the least amount of recoil? Definitely the 6.5 PRC. It's so tough, but if I absolutely had to pick 3 to be the final 3, it'd be the 6.8 Western, the 7 PRC, and the 30 and the 300 WSM. So you got 127 caliber, 128 caliber, and 130 caliber. And one of these 3 I'm going to pick to be the cartridge to rule them all. I put out a poll. Currently there's 232 votes. Of these 3, which one would you pick? 6.8 Western got 17% of the vote. 7mm PRC got 46% of the vote. 300 WSM got 37% of the vote. So you guys, the biggest part of you, would go with the 7 PRC, followed by the 300 WSM, followed by the 6.8 Western. This is tough. If you said the 300 WSM, I don't disagree in the slightest. I think it could easily do it. Okay? If you said the 7mm PRC, I don't disagree. I could see it easily happening. If you said the 6.8 Western, I don't disagree. I could see it for sure happening if it doesn't die. And it seems like it's on life support right now. So I thought a lot about this, and I'm going to probably throw you for a loop. I'm going to say the 6.8 Western. I know, some people just gave me a thumbs down, some people unsubscribed, some people turned the video off. Let me say, this is assuming it's going to continue to be available for people, and it's not going to go the way of the 284 Winchester. The 284 Winchester was a cartridge way ahead of its time, and because of poor marketing and just bad decisions, it didn't become what it should have been. And I hope that doesn't happen with the 6.8 Western, because I believe it can be the cartridge to rule them all. Before I explain why, let me just back up and say, you know, a couple years ago, I bought a 270 short mag. Am I sad that I bought the short mag? No. I have more than one cartridge. If I want to shoot a heavier bullet, I'll shoot a 308, I'll shoot a 30-06, and I might even get a 300 WSM one of these days. So I don't need those heavy bullets in one cartridge. I am fine with 130 to 150 grain bullets. In fact, that's what I got the 270 for. So I'm a fan of the 270 short mag. Have really not a huge desire to have a 6.8 Western because I have multiple cartridges. But if I didn't, if I had zero cartridges, I'm sorry, if I had zero rifles right now, and I just didn't have a lot of money, and I was not concerned about long-range target shooting, I was only concerned with hunting, and I wanted a hunting cartridge for the rest of my life, I think I would pick a Winchester Model 70, stainless, with the muzzle brake threads on there. Not that I'm going to use the muzzle brake, but just want the threaded version. So the stainless Model 70, I think it's called Extreme Weather, in a 6.8 Western, I think that's what I'd get. If I could only have one for the rest of my life to hunt any game species in the world, except for small game or dangerous game, I believe I'd go with a 6.8 Western. Why? Let me explain. Okay, first of all, going back to versatility, it is more versatile than any other 27 caliber cartridge so far. 270 WSM, 270 Weatherby all have 1 in 10 twist. I believe, if I'm not wrong, the 27 Nosler has a 1 in 8.5, which is pretty darn close. And I think the SIG Fury is going to have a 1 in 8 as well. But of those cartridges, for sure, the 6.8 Western has a 1 in 8 twist. I think some Brownings even have a 1 in 7.5. That makes it versatile. Okay, that gives you the biggest versatility to shoot out of one. Now, is it more versatile than a 300 WSM? Is it more versatile than a 7PRC? No, but because of that twist rate, it's right there with them. So versatility, check. What about the other aspect of versatility? I talked about distance. Now, it's in a short action, right? So you have limited space. However, it's a short, fat case, so it does have enough case capacity to still reach out there to 400 to 500 yards. So on both areas of versatility that I mentioned, it gets a check. This is a minor thing, but it is coming out from probably my two favorite manufacturers of all time, Winchester and Browning, so that's a big plus. It is in a really cool caliber, and some would say that 27 caliber is the perfect middle ground. I mean, it's 6.8. It's 7 thousandths different than a 7mm. But yet, so it's just right in between 6.5 and 7. A lot of people say the perfect, caliber is right there, 6.5 or 7. Well, the 6.8's right in the middle. So it's the caliber itself is such a good balance point. But the caliber was limited until recent times because of the twist rate. So I just like the 27 caliber. I think it's a really good caliber midpoint. It's also, it's kind of an American thing. The 27 caliber is it's an American thing. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. If there are classic cartridges in 27 caliber that come out in other countries, I'm just not aware of. But it's kind of an American thing, and it just sets well with me there. Of course, the 30 caliber is too. So, kind of. Here's another reason to pick the 6.8 Western. It has the Creedmoor touches. Okay, now that might be a detractor or a detraction for some. But for me, it's a big plus. So you guys all know the story. Creedmoor came out in 2007. It was for target shooting. And they gave it a match grade chamber, basically tight tolerances, high head height, and a fast twist rate. And they've consistently been doing that with all their cartridges. All the PRC cartridges have all had that same design philosophy. It's how they've marketed their products so well, and it's catching on, and it seems to generate inherent accuracy, and it's become very popular. A lot of people love the Hornady cartridges. The 6.8 Western basically copied that, okay? They did exactly the same thing. It's not an original idea, but they copied it. They realized it's a good idea. So that's why the 6.8 Western's a little bit shorter than the 270 short mag, so they can put that heavy bullet out there and still have room to fit in a short action. And so it's got the head height, and they went with the same chamber tolerances too. It's got the same chamber tolerances, it's got the same twist rate. It is a copy, okay? And I think that's probably why Hornady refuses, if I've understood the rumor correctly, refuses to produce anything for a 6.8 Western, because they feel like they were copied. And they were. But if you like all those things about the Hornady cartridges, if you're that person, it has all those things. Now, I'm a fan of short mags. You might be watching and you're not a fan of short mags, so you're probably offended that I even had 2 short mags in the top 3. But I like them, okay? I just like everything about them. I like the modern case design, which, by the way, it's been like 23 years ago since that came out. And I just like the modern case design of the short mags. I really like the 35-degree shoulder angle. All the Hornady cartridges, and pretty much all new cartridges, are coming out with a 30-degree shoulder angle. And it seems like the consensus says that's the best. That's the one to go with. I'm not saying they're wrong, but I like that 35-degree shoulder angle. All the Nosler cartridges, the RPMs, and the short mags all have a 35-degree shoulder angle. And the original cartridge that had a 35-degree shoulder angle was the 284 Winchester, one of my personal favorites. 6.5 284, 35-degree shoulder angle. So I like the shoulder angle. I like the design overall. It has a longer neck, not extremely long, but it's right there at caliber length. So, so most people will tell you the neck length should be the diameter of your caliber, and that's just about the right neck length. Some cartridges like 7WSM, 300 Win Mag have real short necks, and it doesn't hurt them, and it doesn't affect accuracy. But I like the longer neck, and so it has that longer neck. Check mark. So from a design standpoint, check mark. All right, so I got to end this video somewhere. Put in the comments where I went wrong. Put in the comments why I should have picked another cartridge. Ask me questions on why I picked a cartridge. Now, don't misunderstand me. I have no plans on selling my 270 short mag, on getting rid of all my cartridges and rifles and just having one. No, so I'm not saying I'm going to go buy this, but if I started over today, I think the cartridge to rule them all, the lord of the cartridges, is the 6.8 Western, and I'd get it in a Model 70 stainless extreme weather, or maybe a Browning X-Bolt stainless stalker. One of those two. All right, so I put my opinion out there. I'd love to know your comments. This should be interesting. Until next time, have a great day and take care.